You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Evan.
And I'm Kayla, and this week we have Mel Daneke on. Mel is a producer based in Texas who owns Viridian Productions, and she's currently a singer and vocal percussionist in Musae. During this episode, we talked about how she got into music, her work in production, and her passion for electronic music.
If you listened to last week's episode with Chris Salise, you'll find that we started interspersing some audio samples of stuff he was talking about in the episode, and we're doing the same going forward. So in this episode with Mel, I put in some samples of some things that she did with Musae, her audition video, etc. So tell us if you love that, tell us if you hate it. All feedback is helpful. And speaking of feedback, we are having an ongoing giveaway kind of thing where if you leave us a review on iTunes, 1 star, 5 stars, the shortest review as you want, you'll be automatically entered to win a personal sketch for you by Kayla of you, and also a sticker pack of some new stickers that we've gotten. So that's pretty cool. Automatically entered to win. You don't have to do anything. Just leave us a review. And we will be pulling the winner in our 50th episode and every 10 episodes from there on in. So I think that's a nice fun thing. And I know you want me to stop talking, but I have one last thing to say, and that is we're going to be at the Los Angeles Acapella Festival, LAF, February 9th through the 11th. We're going to be doing a panel on the future of acapella. We're going to record that as a live podcast episode and release it. We're going to be doing social media takeovers. We're going to be running around LA, so if you're in the area, please do hit us up. We're really excited about that. And without further ado, this week's episode with Mel Daneke.
So we are rolling.
Okay, great.
Take two. We weren't rolling the first round, so now we have all of our audio going. So hi, Mel. Thank you for joining us on Head Voice.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We just kind of wanted to turn it over to you, and if you wouldn't mind just giving us a brief introduction and how you sort of got into music.
Sure. So my name is Mel Daneke, and I'm in the band Musae, and I'm in Viridian Productions. I started Viridian Productions. I started music when I was a little lass. Why did I go there? Oh, Lord in heaven. Okay, so I started music when I was, I guess my mom brought me to some preschool classes that involved like bells and scarves and like running around the room, listening to music and gymboree. Mm-hmm. She was really integral in my music exposure. I didn't say this before, but I need to give my parents a lot of credit just because my mom's a musical person. My mom sings, and my dad is like just a huge avid classic rock dude. Mm-hmm. And so anytime I was in the car with them, which was a lot, you're just in the car all the time as a kid. I guess I was. I don't know. And
I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah. And my mom would be like Josh Groban, Celine Dion, all of those, Jersey Mom. You listen to them, you're like swooning. Michael Bublé. I mean, it was later on it was Michael Bublé, and so, but it was mostly Celine Dion, and like on that end. So I fell in love with like that sort of sound, the Whitney Houston, Celine Dion sound. Mm-hmm. And then on my dad's side, if I'm going on errands with my dad, he'll be like, hey, who is this? And quiz me on these like classic rock artists I'm getting exposed to, like the Stones, like Dire Straits, Led Zeppelin, mm-hmm. All that stuff. So I had these like the opposite sides of the spectrum going at all times. And then Christmas, around Christmas, it's Christmas time right now. Like my mom would put on Harry Connick Jr. and I got exposed to jazz. So I was just had all of this going just as a kid, sitting in the car, and just listening to music. And New Jersey and like that area, there's always a lot of music going on. And so, and with New York and everything, and that area in and of itself pumps out a lot of artists that are really great. So I got the exposure to some really really cool stuff at an early age, and then I got really involved in church, the church choirs, the church musicals, and learning how to play the bass clarinet, and then switched over to percussion, and then all throughout high school, I was in all of the bands and all the choirs. I was super overachiever, and I was in the musicals and regions and state choirs and all sorts of stuff. And so I got really into it. And I think I had said before, like, before our technical difficulty, the only class that I did not have that was music related, that didn't phrase better at all, was English and anatomy. Were my two classes that were not music related my senior year of high school. So I just, I ate during women's chorale during my lunch, and I wanted to learn as much as possible and sing and play. I mean, I picked up a new instrument senior year because I thought it was cool. I picked up the tuba. I was like, I'm never gonna play the tuba, but I was like, it's so fun. Like, I'd rather play the tuba than sit in algebra and never have that serve me. So I did that, and it was great. And then and then college happened, and I decided to go to school for music, and there it was.
Yeah, so you studied vocal performance and also audio production, which are two really big things, but then you were also in Premium Blend, which is another priority or task. So how did you kind of do all the things at once, and how did acapella fit into all of that for you?
Yeah, so my whole my whole journey with Ithaca. I went to Ithaca College, and I started as a music education major and actually did that for 2 years, and then switched over to performance and had sound recording as my minor, which was awesome, and I really enjoyed it because I really got the best of all worlds just from kind of dipping my hands into each thing and switching halfway through. And with acapella, it was really cool because, freshman year, so I wanted to audition for Premium Blend, but what ended up happening was I wanted to continue playing the tuba, so I didn't even audition freshman year, and I didn't really know what acapella was. I think in high school, 5 O'Clock Shadow came to Somerville High School, and that was my first real understanding of what acapella was. And even I remember watching videos of rockapella and being like, nah, there's definitely some sort of backing track there, I didn't actually think it was a true thing, until I saw 5 O'Clock Shadow, and then also the Dartmouth Airs came in, the Colgate 13 came in to our school on their tours.
That's
which is
cool.
It was really fun. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. But I didn't really truly understand what it was, and so I was like, man, I'll just play the tuba in campus band for the first year. And then all my friends got into Premium Blend, my friends now, and I had two of my friends at the time who were also they got into the group, and I was missing out. I had just had FOMO the entire year, and I would just
they also tuba players?
They were. Wouldn't have that been something? We could have just started a whole tuba troupe, in addition to acapella. Wow. Yeah. So it was. I missed out that whole freshman year, and made friends with everybody in the acapella groups, though, because I really wanted to be in that whole scene because I thought it was so cool. And especially the concerts at Ithaca that the acapella groups put on are so larger than life, probably so unnecessary. Some of the things that they've had jumbotrons, smoke and lights, the whole thing. It's and I was just intrigued by the fact that you can have this elaborate concert and also seeing Ithaca for the first time, it was really grabbed me, because I saw how tight knit of a group it was, and I really wanted to be part of a group of people that also loved to sing just as much as I did, especially with contemporary a cappella. So I made it fit into, sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but I made it fit into that. And again, I was also in the opera, and then I was also in the, had all my 18 and a half credits every semester throughout college, except for my last one. So it was kind of difficult to fit in, but I made sure to make time for it because it was important to me. So was it at the time, did you feel like acapella was a passing fancy, or when did you think maybe I'll do something more with this than just Premium Blend? Yeah, I think it was right before senior year. I went to Boss for the first time, and Ithaca was performing. I was competing, and Voices in Your Head competed, and I think it was the Nor'easters competed as well.
Quite a year.
Yeah, that was a really. I mean, that year sticks out in my mind so much, and it was the first year I saw Musae perform in a class. That is when it truly stuck out to me as this is bigger than me. Like this is bigger than just college. There's so much more to this to a cappella than just my little bubble neck of the woods Ithaca College. Right. And that is why I love telling people to go to festivals and kind of just to talk to people and ask questions and go to these things, because it brought me to where I am now, and it could bring someone else to bring, to a new height in their musical journey and their musical experience. So I think that's where it really kind of clicked for me. Like, this could be a really cool thing to continue to do.
Yeah. And what got you started in like a cappella production, which is such a specific thing too?
Yeah. I think I was always intrigued upon the aspect of production and recording. Right. And even while I was in school, I started studying it because I thought I wanted to know more about it. Like, that's why you study something, because you want to learn about it. So with a cappella production, I really did not know one thing about recording a cappella. Like, I was like, go sing into the mic, and that's it. Like, I had no idea there were other parameters that went into it. But it was senior year of college. Premium Blend decided to record an album, and all of the seniors wanted to be on it, and it was really a big yearbook album for us. Yeah. There were 8 seniors leaving, so we really wanted to make something from, because we had all been involved in the previous album that we had made with another production company. However, we didn't have the money, and one of the big things that I actually tell other groups about not doing is tracking it yourself. Or if you're doing it, you better be very careful. And talk to somebody who has tracked a group before, and take all of the advice you can. So, my friend Ashley had been involved with working with Lane from Voice Play, because she's from Orlando, and she was like, I worked a little bit with him, and I'm gonna work with him over the summer a bit. And she kind of had some advice from the other guys in the cappella who had self-tracked their album, The Party Upstairs, and then we got some advice from Lane from Voice Play, and then she was like, here you go. And then I ended up tracking it to not a MIDI, which is a little bit scary. Now thinking now, because I track with MIDIs all the time with collegiate and high school groups and everything. But that was like the first exposure to me producing a cappella, and it was the album that never was, because it never came out, which was really sad. And it's funny because I still have all of the files on my computer, and I'm still going to work on them. Like, I to this day, I'm like, when I get a free moment, I'm gonna go back and like make sure I produce that track. But my only job was to track it, and then the editing never went anywhere. Like, we never actually got to edit it. So, but then I was like, this is really cool. I gotta do this. So
So when did Viridian Productions kind of like come into the picture, and like when did that sort of come about?
Yeah. So I had been involved as a contractor with freelancing, and I worked with the vocal company for a time. So I had been doing this for a while, and there was a point where I kind of wanted to go out and do it on my own, and really just do the a cappella thing on my own, and also branch out into other forms of music as well. And that's also important to me as well, is tying a cappella and the quote unquote outside world of music back in. So that's why I created Viridian Productions, and it's been serving me well as far as production is going. It's going pretty well.
Yeah. So I think a kind of characteristic of a lot of the music that you've worked on for your own self and your own self, for yourself and for your clients is, I think, that you really embrace the technology that's available in terms of, manipulating sound and creating soundscapes and different stuff with percussion. So like what kind of informs that for you? Why does that kind of draw you in?
Yeah, that's I feel like I could talk about, it's so funny. I feel like I could talk about all this stuff for hours on end. So I'm trying.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, thank goodness for you. So as just an avid music lover, music historian, I got into drumming really heavily when I got into high school and college, and I was actually in the percussion ensemble all 4 years at Ithaca College, and I played the steel drums for the first time. I mean, I played all these instruments that I never picked up, and even now I'm in the Austin Samba School, and I play the caixa drums, and it's all Brazilian. It's really cool. So I'm trying to stick with that. Cool. And so that's why drumming's always been important to me. And then, I mean, my whole drumming background took me, it really helped me with beatboxing, because I could really understand what sounds those were, and how to really nuance each sound depending on the instrument that I was trying to emulate. But that's a whole different conversation. But that's really why it's important to me, because a lot of the drums are such, if you have them in an a cappella track, the drums are such a feature, and they're not to be overlooked. I think when people track percussion, it's what I've seen when people track percussion or treat percussion, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, like, cool, we'll get it over with, or we'll just paste it out, and it's all the same velocity or all the same level, like the whole song, or the same feel. And you don't, the live take of that spit track is completely different than like every snare sound is not going to be the same snare sound, so you have to treat that, going into when you're quantizing the percussion out onto a grid. You have to treat that like you're hitting a drum. Like if you want it to sound, you can have it something sound electronic if you want to, and say this was like coming from my mouth at one point in time, and now it's spaced, it's cut up and chopped up and spaced out onto the grid. But if you want it to still sound human, you need to manipulate it to also sound human, which also in turn makes everything full circle. Like, okay, well then why am I even manipulating it in the first place? But then it is a more nuanced and a way cooler sound. And I just think that the sound of like this new wave of electronic electrocapella is super cool and super different, and it's been done. It's not that it hasn't been done in the past, but I think it's just starting to open up more and get a little heavier, and people are starting to push the limits a lot more. That was also
it's funny as you're talking. It kind of reminds me of like, having been in bands and stuff, like, I think, and recording, guitar-based drums type albums, it's like kind of the same thing as a cappella, where like you can really record guitars and vocals and bass like anywhere, but like your drum really makes the track. And like not just with like rock or music, but like with any music, especially now, I feel like what's on the radio and what's getting popular is it's like people are looking for like weird new drum sounds, and like that really makes a record. And you're right, you like really like get drawn to that when you're listening to an a cappella song. So for you, when did, because I kind of had a similar thing of playing in percussion ensembles, when you were like, I can also do this with my mouth, when did that kind of happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So oh man, I think the video's still out there too. So like it was really a cappella that brought me there. I was like, I'm never gonna be able to like beatbox. Like I'm not a beatboxer. But I was intrigued because it tied my two loves together. Like my vocal love of all chorally, group choral activity, and then my love of like beats and drums and everything. Yeah. It was like it's like how that's what tap dancing did. I tap dance as well, and that's what tapping did. It was like percussion and dance put together, and then I could also sing if I wanted to, but that's a little too Carol Burnett, I guess. But I was like, that is way too cool. So the moment truly was when I was watching Ithacappella and saw that beatboxing was possible, and that when I asked, I think I actually asked Rob Dietz. Yeah, we went to school together for I think a year. I think I asked him about like how he learned, and a lot of it was just watching other people, talking to other people how they make their sounds, and then slowly incorporating, their YouTube tutorials became a thing. Yeah. And I remember I like beatboxed with one of the other girls in the group because I really wanted to try it out for a song. And at the time, no one wanted to beatbox anything. So I was like, cool, I'll just like beatbox a lot of stuff. And then, so I beatboxed with her and she'd be like, yeah, you got it. And I had no idea how much work it took to beatbox. Like I was winded by the end. I was like, I can't keep up. But I think the first song I beatboxed was Take Me Home Tonight. Take me home tonight. I think it was that or something like that. I don't know. But it was really fun. And that's kind of that. As soon as I had that moment where I like gripped the mic and like had it like really close and felt like I was the heartbeat of what was going on in the group. Man, that like blew me away. I was like, I want to just do this way more.
Yeah.
So, and it also gave me a break since I was singing so much in school. It gave, as my major, it gave me a break.
Yeah.
To kind of focus on just doing my percussion thing within a vocal ensemble. So it was really that moment. It was sophomore year.
So just like how did vocal percussion sort of make a way for a Musae for you?
Yeah. My degree was 4.5 years, so I had a half semester, to which my half semester I lived with four guys of Ithacappella. So I lived in the Ithacappella house because one of them was going abroad, so I just took that room, and it was perfect timing. They all happened to be my friends, and it was a great time. And that semester for Premium Blend, I wasn't going to be in Premium Blend that semester, actually. I decided, like, I just want to focus on my recital because it was a lot to deal with, it was a big program. But I they were like, look, we had a lot of, you guys all graduated. There's 8 people graduating last year. And they were like, we don't really have anyone that wants to beatbox or that can beatbox well at the moment. So why don't you just stay on just as our beatboxer? And I was like, that's a great idea. Like and now groups actually audition beatboxers exclusively. I had no idea that was even a thing. So I was like, yeah, let's just do that. So then the entire semester I was able to go into a rehearsal and just beatbox everything. And that was truly the time where, it was 4 hours a week, sometimes 5, where I really nuanced a bunch of sounds that I had wanted to work on. And it was that rehearsal time for 3 months where I could sit there and just be like, cool, I'm starting to feel like I'm more confident in this. Because I took the time to practice and rehearse. Which I think is important also as vocal percussionists. And, even so now, I still don't do it enough. But a lot of beatboxers don't really I feel like up and coming new beatboxers don't always think about taking the time to really nuance and figure out some new cool stuff. Totally. Always they're focused a lot on just like weird sounds, whereas like your kit and your groove could need just as much practicing as your zipper or what have you. And then it was coming to the close of college for me and graduating, and I'd finished my recital, and my dear friend Dan Purcell, whom I think everyone just in the acapella community knows him via social media. He's just an avid acapella person. He was like, Mel, Musae is auditioning a vocal percussionist, and I was like, what? What? I was like, no, like there's no way I would get in. There's no way. And then so I was like, you know what? Like I'll just do it. So it was literally I think the night before they were due. I put up this tapestry behind me because I didn't want to stay in front of a white wall or anything. And then my friend Dave Allen, who was also in the Capella at the time, and he's actually doing his own producer thing now too. Recorded me doing it. I think the audition is still on YouTube somewhere. Yeah. Oh, great. Oh. Fabulous. And yeah, and so I had to beatbox over a track that they took the beatboxing out of. And I think another important thing that they had been looking for was they wanted someone else to also be someone that could sing well. So I had to send them videos of me singing in the group, me beatboxing with the group, me like having a solo, and so all of that incorporated into their decision.
1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just remember, I literally remember getting the call, and they're like, "Cool. So are you available to go to Hong Kong in March?" And I just go, "What? And I was like, "Of course I'm free. I just graduated. I have no plans." and then I got in the group, and that was one of the happiest moments in my a cappella life and musically. I mean, I was elated to be in this group, and I still am.
Was that Hong Kong Festival awesome. The first thing that you did with them?
Yeah, it was.
That's
and
insane.
I was freaking out. I mean, we had one retreat, maybe two beforehand, and we're a long distance group, so I was ready for that. I was like, this is what I've been training for my whole life, like to be a professional singing musician, and I was psyched. And so I was making sure I was on the ball with everything that I was trying so hard to be over prepared. So the first thing that I ended up doing with them, we got off a plane, and then like 2 hours later we were on stage in a stadium. Yeah. And I was like, cool, kicking it off, my like professional career, like post college in a stadium. Great. Like what? Like my mind was blown. And like yeah. I mean, like going on a tour, like that was my true dream, like is being a touring musician. So I was like, whew, and it was great. And thus began, my journey with Musae in beginning of 2014.
Keeps getting closer. I don't, but she thinks I know her. Beautiful smile with those.
Yeah, you should. If you haven't watched that video, there's a video of you doing Amnesia, right?
Yeah.
From that time, yeah. It's insane because there's like glow sticks and stuff, and like the crowd noise is insanity. It's crazy. It's one of the craziest like live acapella videos.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. Really cool.
So you mentioned that you're a long distance group, and you've kind of been in it long enough that you're as big a part of the image as anybody else. And so like how does Musae like work in 2017 with y'all being all over the country?
It's to start off that question, we have new members now, it's we had our thing going for a while, and then that works. But when you get rotating members, or when you get like a new cast of people in your group, you gotta kind of figure things out a little bit differently, but very subtle differences. For the most part, the way that we work is we'll take, if we have a gig coming up and it's like a festival gig, we'll usually go on a retreat for a few days. We call it like Musae retreat, whether it's up in Rochester, whether it's somewhere where any of us live. We've been to Texas at Houston at Joe's place. When I lived in Brooklyn, we were in Brooklyn for a while, and we try to also like have a gig when we do our retreats, and the retreats are really all day long. It's like a 24/7 type of deal, where we're rehearsing music and adding choreography to our shows, nuancing some of the technology, getting used to our in-ears, things like that. And so it's usually like a 4 to 5 day thing right before a gig, like at least like a month or two out of the gig. And then sometimes we'll have another retreat leading up to it. And that's kind of how we do it. And we just make sure that we're on our own. We need to hold ourselves accountable in practicing our music every week. Right. Because you have these groups every week that practice for, 2 hours, 4 hours a week, other professional groups, and because they can and they're in the same area. But as a group that's a long distance group, you need to make sure that you're accountable in practicing your own parts, listening to your learning tapes, looking at past performances and seeing what you could do better. And then when we come together, it's strictly rehearsing rather than learning parts.
Yeah. Are you actively like trying to book gigs, or do you just kind of come together whenever an opportunity presents itself?
No, we are trying to, we do actively book gigs. If we're going to book, so it depends on what the gig is. So we've expressed interest in certain festival gigs, and then we've talked to people to see if those gigs could happen, or they'll talk to us and have interest in us, and then we'll base some things around that. Similarly, if we felt like we haven't performed in a while, we'll try to create a tour for ourselves. That way, when we do come together, it's worthwhile and it's worth all our opportunity and our time together and to perform and to continue, being a band. So, when we do book things on our own, we try to stick to like a week of something. Like I think 2 years ago we did a spring tour, and there were a few college performances, a few bar gigs. I think last spring we did a bunch of gigs around New York, this tri-state area, and we booked all of those, and they were super fun. And sometimes those are the most fun because they're so different. We know what to expect mostly when we go to festival gigs, but we don't always know what to expect when we go to a bar, and we don't know how the sound is. So sometimes it's pretty exciting, and you're usually getting a crowd of people who aren't into a cappella and they don't know what to expect either. So that's always a really fun part of performing when we book our own stuff. Especially at bars and clubs and venues like that.
Yeah. So you guys performed at Boss last year, which the crowd was going crazy for that. We were there. And and there's obviously a lot of electronics and a lot of cool things that you guys do in terms of staging and electronic sound and whatnot. So, and Don't Let Me Down in particular, you're doing the solo. That's your arrangement, right? Too?
Yeah.
So you arrange that. You're doing the solo, and you're also messing around on this percussion pad. So how did that come together and all those different elements? Kind of like in the prep phase, how are you able to do that, even though you all are long term and getting that thing together?
Yeah, Don't Let Me Down was. It was funny. I think one of our retreats. I think it must have been. This was before Jesse was in the group, and we were at Sled Dog Studios in Rochester, and we were just thinking around. We're like, "Wow, we need an arrangement. We just need a electronic, fun, upbeat arrangement right now." And so I was racking my brain. I was thinking about a Chainsmokers song or some sort of Chainsmokers song, because at the time, and they're still pretty trendy. But I was loving everything that they were putting out. They were hit after hit after hit, and I think Sam showed me that this Don't Let Me Down song, and apparently everyone knew it except for me. And so at the time, I went in the basement and arranged everything. They were rehearsing upstairs, and so while they were rehearsing upstairs, I was down arranging and and putting different things in, and I created the vocal parts first, and then I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I did this thing? Because we started toying around with the technology when we put out when we started this arrangement Miracle, but that was more looping, and it's slowly now it's all tech and some pre-recorded stuff, but it was really then where I was like, we gotta like take this, like we gotta ramp this up. This is gonna be really cool if we can pull this off. And so I started to produce it like a normal a cappella track, like as I would treat, you know, any other spit take or mine or whatever, and pull these human sounds and manipulate them and make them sound like, you know, like Dead Mouse a cappella. And then, you know, I showed the girls and they were like, this could be so cool. And I was like, yeah, what if we just like kept the backing track and I just sang over it? And so we were like toying with that idea, and then it just happened. And there have been and then we just kept it in, and it worked. And we tried it out at our gigs in New York when we went on a little mini New York tour, and it worked really well. And it just kind of, I don't know, I always wanted to incorporate, you know, again, like incorporating drums and voice together. And then how can I actually drum physically while also singing, and then having my beatboxing be a part of it? Cool, this is a way to do it. And also Musae is really cool. All the girls in Musae are cool enough to run with my weird ideas and also be like, yeah, I mean, if you could do it, like, why not? So they've been really awesome to just allow me to express myself through this way, through this avenue, and also kind of figure out these brand new things and ways of doing it. So it was, that's kind of like how it happened, I guess.
I need ya right now. I need you right now. So don't let me down. I think I'm losing my mind now. It's in my head. Got in my head. Gotta show me when I need you the most. So don't let me down. 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 Down. Don't let me down.
And if you want to see it all come together, we will link that in the show notes. Highly recommend. I think we're right at the end of our episode today, so we're going to end on a couple loaded questions. Number one being, what are you excited for in acapella? What trends are you into? What do you want to see?
Ooh, yeah. I want to see a lot more. Well. Well. I, of course, want to see a lot more electronic music come out. Like, just you know, there's so much creativity that goes into that. It's not even just you're plugging in a snare. You're plugging in like a snare and then doing more stuff to it and making that snare sound maybe sound like a synthesizer instead. So I think there's a lot of creativity that could go into electro-capella, the electro-capella genre as it is, or subgenre. And there are a lot of producers right now that are doing that. So I want to see more of that. I definitely would love to see more nuanced a cappella groups like that stand out within their own right, or a cappella artists, and just maybe like one or two people, more duos, more single people doing their thing, and lots of looping, and then incorporating more electronics into that. I think that could be a really cool part of a cappella. That's it. I mean, I've thought about marching band being like how they have sets and stuff, and like I thought about having that be a thing, like in competitions where people have sets that they bring in for their competition set, like actual like scaffoldings or whatever. But that could be like a really interesting thing to incorporate far in the future if acapella continues to snowball as it is.
You can lead the charge on that one.
Yeah, you know. Oh Lord.
And then just the second question for you is, what is up next for you? Like, what's on the agenda for Mel?
Yeah. That's like asking a senior in college what they're doing after they graduate.
We got the London Acapella Festival. To start.
Yeah. No, I just Viridian. I want to produce a lot of albums this year. I'm going to produce. I'm producing a lot right now. And continuing to be with Musae, and ramping up and trying new things. Continuing to be creative, and even if at the end of the day your product isn't as cool as you thought it was, at least you created something, and it's all about creating and sharing that with other people. And I'm also my own artist as well, and I incorporate acapella into my own artistry around Austin. So I'm definitely going to be performing a lot more within the next coming year as my own entity.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. If you want to work with Mel, we will have links to all her things, and go do that up, especially if you're in the Texas area. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
And we hope that you will join us next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
Head Voice. Without you.